Yeah, so our challenge is to try to introduce them to what landscape architecture is in a 5D program. Many of the students, especially the first year, never even heard of landscape architecture. They signed up because they were interested in art or architecture or design. The greatest reward for all of us is seeing the transformation from the day 1 through day 5. And we have a pretty intensive program to expose them to various professionals in the field from many different design disciplines to give them a taste of what it may be like to go to school and study landscape architecture either as an undergraduate at Michigan State University or the graduate program at the University of Michigan or any other accredited programs throughout the country. So day 1 typically starts off with an introduction of what landscape architecture is and what landscape architects do. Through the course of the 5 days, we actually bring in over 18 professionals that come in and volunteer their time in 3-hour modules, AM and PM, to expose the students to different disciplines within our field and to relay some of their experiences, how they got involved in the program, and to teach the kids about things that we might take for granted, a great park or a waterfront or a trail or an athletic field or even a golf course that they may have visited, to understand what's involved on how that got designed, developed, funded, and built, and that a landscape architect, usually a jack of all trades, is the person coordinating many different design disciplines to get the final product done. So on day 1, we start with a brief PowerPoint presentation explaining what landscape architects do and the various professions, whether it's private, public, institution, research, whether they work for a contracting firm or they do high-level government work. There's lots of opportunities in the field of landscape architecture. We also show them a number of projects that they may be familiar with: Belle Isle, Central Park in New York City, the waterfront that famous and infamous landscape architects have worked on. And then we use a local park, Carpenter Lake, as our design venue. We chose that because it's in the city of Southfield. It's not too far from Lawrence Technological University, and it's a unique passive park. And the students really are excited about boulders at Carpenter Lake. They love milling around, climbing up through it, and they also enjoy the walk through the woods. But the number one response we get is it's kind of boring after you've seen it one time. There's really nothing to do for students of their age group. And we target our program for freshmen through senior high school students. So those that haven't made up their mind yet on where they're going to school, or they might have enrolled at a particular school but they don't know what they're interested in. That's the target audience that we're trying to get excited about landscape architecture as a profession. And since I'm also an urban planner, certified planner, we also expose them to how landscape architecture can be a basis for a profession in urban planning. I've spent 37 years in the field with a degree of landscape architecture from the State University of New York College of Environmental Science and Forestry at Syracuse, but I've always concentrated in the public sector and used my design experience for a rewarding career in planning. So we take them out there on a field trip. They spend a couple hours roaming around, taking pictures, taking inventory notes, coming up with some preliminary concepts of how they can make this park more exciting for students of their age and what would keep them coming back to visit this place. We bring them back to the studio. Lawrence Tech does a great job as far as providing lunches or box lunches, depending what if we're on tours or not. And then that's where we start bringing in some additional professionals to teach them or expose them to different niches in our field. Mark Heber from HED, who had done a lot of work with the university on green infrastructure, takes them on a walking tour, shows them the geothermal design that went into one of the buildings there, exposes them to what a rain garden, a green roof, how stormwater can be treated before it goes into the sewer, the difference between gray infrastructure and green infrastructure. And the students get exposed to things right in their backyard as far as the university is concerned. And many of the students who either are familiar with Southfield or grew up here or first time visiting are pleasantly surprised about all these things that we take for granted. Day 2 is we bring in artists. In the past, Dr. Hubert Massey has joined us, Dolores Flagg, the chair of our Southfield Arts Commission, and we spent a whole module on art and design and how that can be incorporated into placemaking. And we have taken walking tours of the campus as well as the Southfield City Center trail to show them the various pieces of art, including Redpole Park and recently our Monarch Butterfly and Sculpture Garden. And then the second afternoon, they start getting into developing a SWOT analysis. So strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats for the park as far as what they've observed. And this is kind of a hands-on where they're writing out a list of different observations. By this time, we've already broken them into 2 groups. So we had eight students this year, 2 groups of 4. They come up with a team name. They have to learn how to work together. And we have freshmen in high school working with incoming freshmen in college. So there's a great age group. One of the things that I try to do from day 1 is teach them how to do public speaking and work as a team. So every time we have a new guest instructor, each of them have to stand up, make eye contact, and give an elevator speech. Who they are, what grade they're in, where they're from, and what some of their interests are. By the end of the week, they've done this about 25 times.
Hi, I'm Lauren. I'm going to be a freshman at MSU next year studying landscape architecture. Some of my interests are golf and art. And one thing that I learned about making the base plan is to get all the base colors in first before you do anything else.
My name is Tim. I'll be a freshman at Schoolcraft College. Some of my interests are cars and hiking. And something I learned yesterday was that you need to have a bunch of different colors to label or to represent different things. You really can't have any like overlap, and they have to be specific and stand out.
My name is Waldo Nieto. I'm going to the 11th grade and I'm from Chicago.
And this helps them with their presentation materials throughout the week. So in the afternoon, we have a couple other landscape architects come in and start to work with the students on this SWOT analysis. They start doing a site inventory, and then they do start working on conceptual design. Day 3, we get on a bus. We've gone down to Detroit for 3 consecutive years. We walk the DeQuinder Cut, the Detroit riverfront. We expose them to Hart Plaza, the Spirit Plaza up Woodward, to Campus Marsh, and then Smith Group has been kind enough to host us for lunch and a tour of their offices. So the students get to see a working design office, have some lunch, and see some cool views. We come back in the afternoon on our 3rd day, and Stephanie Anowen will come in and does a model building project over the course of 3 hours. So we have them focus on a small vignette of their conceptual design, whether it's a seating area, a playground, passive area of wildflowers, or a pond, and they each build a 12 by 12 inch model in 3D scale. So it gets them some hands-on experience on model building and to try to relate their concept design from 2D to 3D. One of the conscious things that we did at the beginning of the program was to get them away from the computer and try to have as many hand sketches and model building and interactive projects throughout the course of the week. I think a lot of design professionals have lost touch with that's how I grew up. studying in the field, and I think it's a unique opportunity for the students to get some real hands-on learning. Day 4, we bring in additional landscape architects to help them take their concept plan and start to do design development. And through the course of that, again, they get vignettes of the professional practice that each of the instructors has experienced, and they share their excitement about being in the profession. And this program would not be successful without the 18 to 20 professionals that give up their time. These are senior, mature professionals that have started their own firms or head of major design development firms. We have landscape architects, planners, architects, artists, civil engineers. We have a huge gamut. This year, though, we were supplemented by some recent grads in the program and some students that are just finishing up. So I think this was our best year overall because these students can relate better to high school students than maybe someone of our age bracket. And by having the mixture of the young and the more mature professionals, I think the students really have a great takeaway of our program. One of the guest instructors that we had, I've had a long time professional relationship with, is Bob Ford, who had his own practice for about 30 years and recently joined a larger firm. He's in a transition to retirement, but he still is excited about showing up to work every day, so we're happy to have him aboard. He came on the last morning and presented some of his projects to the students, and again shared with the many different disciplines that landscape architects can be involved in. And then the students had an opportunity to present their projects and their selves to Mr. Ford, and the interaction and dynamic was almost a dress rehearsal for their final presentation in the afternoon.
Excellent curriculum. So that's underfoot. In fact, we're having a meeting next Tuesday on that. So here we are, doing some golf course landscape architecture, and I'm on the periphery, of course, but I've done some other things. Reclamation consulting. Part of our company with landscape architects and planners included Bauer Ford, reclamation. And we traveled the world and working with distressed lands who have been mined out or in the process of mining, extracting the minerals, which we all need as a society to survive. But at the same time, when we're done extracting the mineral, what type of landscape are we leaving? We don't want to just leave a gaping hole. We want it to shape into something that's productive. So within that realm, we built that business, and it's still going forward today. I'm consulting with people in Toronto next week, going up there, serving as an expert witness, and trying to get a long vision plan that the judge can use in terms of determining the end use plan of their court.
Just introduce your name.
I'm Bridget. This is my diagram of a meadow trail. At Carpenter Lake, there is a meadow that's kind of very underutilized, so I thought we could add a trail through it where you could sit, look at the flowers. There could be interactive elements about find all the flowers, like a little scavenger hunt. And this is a diorama. I didn't really give the vibe of a meadow, so I had to color in the canvas itself. Then I glued all the moss down, and then I made a bench and an interpretive panel. And there's rocks and stuff and trees. And then I also added this. This was Terry's suggestion to add this picture. This is black and white. I colored it because the color printer is broken. And then I made it 3D. You could walk into the path. Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah.
That's it.
Let's hear it for Bridget.
Water feature. I thought it would be a really good idea to have this water feature in a park because there's already an existing pond, and I wanted to add something for other, in case people don't want to go to a playground or something, they could go sit by a waterfall and relax. and like sketch something, or they could journal or write in a book.
Let's hear it for Ghost.
Middle of these wildflowers on the sides, and then this is like a little flower canopy for shade on the playground, little rock wall, and then here's the human scale indicators. There's trails on both sides of the wildflowers, and then some.
My name is Tim, and so what's already at Carpenter Lake Park is a parking lot, a border with a forest here, and a field and the boulder sculptures. What's not there are some pavilions that are big enough to accommodate for larger groups of people who want to sit under some shade and sit at some picnic tables. So I put 2 pavilions there, and I think they're scaled to be big enough to hold a few dozen people. And my favorite part was making the trees background, kind of adding that depth.
Very nice.
Let's hear it for Tim. Josh?
Josh. This is my design I made for the park. It's a flower sculpture on top of rock, and so I used a trillium for the flower on the top. So there's some planters around and some benches and a nice circular path around it. So it's kind of like welcomes you in and around. It has a nice like eye catcher when you're driving down the road. So you see this big wildflower.
Yeah.
All right, good job. Marcel?
It's at a nature center to basically explain the wildlife and the plants and the vegetation that's around Carpenter Lake. The actual building itself is set up to be like a log cabin and preserve nature and just fit the vibe and the aesthetic of being in a wild environment. And right here I just added these pebbles to represent like a gravel trail leading up to the nature center, and then I added moss and some trees to also add to the nature aesthetic and present the idea of being in the outdoors and away from the busy city and civilization.
Good job.
My name is David. This is my representation of a pond at Carpenter Lake. There's already a shallow wetlands, swampy area, so I decided that we could excavate that area and make it a deeper pond. And this blue represents the shallow part, and this is the deeper part. I decided to add a boardwalk, an overlook, and a fountain in the middle. And there's also a bridge here, and there's some benches so you can sit down and enjoy the nature. And yeah.
Good job.
Well, this is inside Carpenter Lake, like the forest side. Here's the little boardway dock type of thing. This here represents the depth of when you look into the forest. Same thing as them. This is the more shallow side, the inside, and this is the more lighter. Yeah, pretty much it.
Very nice.
Nice job.
And that makes sense. So that's what you learn in school. The maintenance part of it, at least when I was in school, wasn't necessarily stressed or talked about. The permitting process, not really stressed or talked about. There's a number of the practical practice, public and private practice, not really talked about too much. You learn that kind of out on the job, but I think some of that could be infused in the program so people understand, all of the components that go together to make things work.
One of the other exercises that they're doing throughout the week is developing a precedent board, or for more commonly known as an inspiration board. So they're searching the internet or looking through magazines or using some of the photos of placemaking elements that they saw on their tours, and they're developing a board to help convey the images of their design ultimately. On the final day, Bob Ford, who's had his own firm for many years, who's volunteered in this profession for over 40 years, comes in and summarizes what landscape architects do, again, exposes them to the different projects that they could be working on, talks about everything from your first site analysis all the way through design development. And we this year gave the students an opportunity to individually present their models to a professional and gets a critique, a positive critique from a professional. So each of the students took their models of a particular piece of their design, again, give them an experience of presentation, making eye contact, commanding the room, and showing their work. And you could see the transformation from day one, where some of them were maybe meek or didn't have that confidence level, where they're excited about talking about their design and getting positive feedback from not only the guest instructors, but we have the students shout out something that they liked about one of their colleagues' projects or presentations. And then finally, the capstone of the week is the final presentation, where they bring everything that they've learned together in a final presentation to new professionals that sit as a jury. And we set it up as a competition in the sense of you're bidding on a project with a client. There's only going to be one winner. You have to make your sales pitch to that client. You can have the best design, but if you come in second place, you don't make any money. And we try to give them a little bit taste of reality about what things may cost and what the process is. And after you get the design development done, you got to sell your idea and get your client excited and being willing to spend the money, where he might send you back to the drawing board. Or you realize you're over budget because you've already spent all this time doing design development and your client says, go back to the drawing board. So all of that is worked in throughout the course of the week. And we had some guests with us this year. Dawn King, our city attorney, who's another professional that works with landscape architects and planners, sat in to observe the presentations and give some additional feedback with the jury. So the group has a responsibility. Each of the 4 individuals has a piece to introduce and present to the jury. And again, they reiterate their initial SWOT analysis. Then they take us through a site design, concept design, and then final design development. They use their models and the inspiration board to convey what their ultimate design is. Then we get some final feedback from the jury. The second group comes up, does it again. Each of the student groups gets to see their colleagues present. And then I have them go around the room and say, what did you like about Team A or Team B? And it's always positive reinforcement. And then finally, we give them a certificate, shake their hands, give them a round of applause. They walk away with a t-shirt. They walk away with the pride of working together. They fill out a survey on their experiences and expectations. And then we ask them, how many of you now are excited about the possibility of landscape architecture? And virtually just about everybody raises their hand. And then we know that we've done a good job.